Hey, what's up, guys? Anthony Testino, co-host of Focused on Fins, and sorry for the delay, but this is finally the Kyle Lewis video. I don't want to spend too much time. I've already, again, taken my time getting getting this out, so we're just gonna breeze through a couple tidbits here and some notes on Kyle Lewis before we get into the tape, just so we know who we're talking about here. So again, Kyle Lewis from Pitt came in at 6 foot, sliver under that, but we'll round up. 220 pounds, 31 and a quarter inch arms. 40-yard dash was 4.53. 10-yard split was 1.58. His three cone was 6.97. His shuttle was 4.26. His vertical jump was 39 and a half inches. His broad was 10 feet 9 inches. So just to give you some combine numbers and pro day stuff. I think you're dealing with a fairly explosive athletic player. That, quick bursts, short area, that kind of stuff. The long speed is, I think, maybe something obviously that would be maybe the one gripe, and it kind of is expected, I think, when you're kind of dealing with a guy that's a tweener between, safety and linebacker and is 6 foot 220, right? It's you could probably tell me the measurables beforehand, and I'd say, okay, long speed would probably be the issue. But again, whether it's an issue or not, I think it still remains to be seen. I don't want to finger point at anything quite yet, and before we get into the tape and say that this is a problem, or vice versa, and say that this is going to be something, it's a strength. So just a little background on his athletic ability and measurables, but a little bit into his college career now. 2022 and 2023, they were pretty quiet, but 2024, he exploded. 13 games played. He had 101 total tackles, 15 and a half were tackles for losses, which is awesome. It's a big number. 7 sacks, also a big number for, how he's used in the position that he played. 4 interceptions. He had 1 forced fumble. He had 3 passes defensed, and he had 1 touchdown. And then in 2025, he played 11 games, so 2 less than 2024. He finished with 81 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, which is still a really good number. 2 picks, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. So, yeah, I mean, it's a guy that, obviously finds the football and impacts games, quite a bit. And, yeah, he was a fun watch, man. So he's a very interesting and intriguing player. I think maybe the most intriguing, selection that Miami made. I think obviously the fact that he was taken a little bit later than people thought definitely eases the trying to word this the right way, but I guess, the fact that he was taken a little bit later takes some pressure off. You take a guy like that in the second round, like, you better have a plan, and it realistically, like, it better work. You better be right, So the fact that he was taken a little bit later, I think it just gives them a little bit more freedom and leeway, and there's a little less pressure, to just kind of say, hey, we can take our time with this guy. Doesn't have to be this or that or live up to certain expectations. He just needs to find a way to be, on the field and contribute. And I don't think there's any doubt, after watching the film, that, like, he'll be able to do that at the absolute worst case scenario. Like, I don't think that this is a kid that's going to completely swing and miss. But again, we'll get into that a little bit more as we get through the tape. So, yeah, we're back. Thanks for checking it out, guys, and let's get into it. All right, here we go. Just to be upfront, for time's sake, I did not get a chance to put similar plays together and group them the way that I had the last couple of videos. So we're going to kind of go in more of a chronological order here based on the schedule that Kyle Lewis played. And we'll kind of just take a look at each game's tape. But we'll make sure, again, that we are clear and concise as we go forward and kind of bounce around a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Got him here playing the linebacker in the box with pretty much, a regular like 4-3 set. And take a look at him. This is just him kind of playing some linebacker in the box, sifting through traffic and, fitting the run. Here he is here, working his way back inside, based on the motion that he got. And again, right here, just kind of, fights his way. Well, not really fights, but, again, sifts his way through traffic and ends up making a tackle. So, going to get a look at some linebacker snaps here. This here I thought was interesting. Didn't really see a ton of this. And he's also really not in a position to do it all that often either. 6-foot guy, kind of stacking up a tight end here and, long arming him and holding him at bay, getting a hand on the running back and then bringing him down for the tackle. I thought that was pretty cool and impressive. Right, so good play there. Here he is outside more. This is kind of your apex overhang star position, right? Whichever you want to call it. There's so many names for all this stuff that it's almost hard to keep up and make sure you're on the same page with people. See, I thought this was interesting now, and this happened a couple times there. At least one other time that I did record and have on tape was, yes, the ball didn't go here, and Malachi Toney is a little bit of a decoy, but he's so aggressive at times that I think you could do this deliberately, because I know that when I had played, there were things similar to this where it was, hey, I want you to flash and do this to make it look like it's super aggressive. And, when the quarterback sees this color flash by, he's expecting this now to be open, but instead we're going to send a second guy to the same area and, unexpectedly, and you can walk away with a pick. So, again, this was late in the game. I'm sure there was some kind of maybe lackadaisicalness, if that's a word, with Carson Beck here. I mean, they were up big at this point. So, again, I don't think he was treating this like it was fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. So, but at the same time, again, this is Kyle Lewis. He's a very aggressive player. It's also one of the things I think is a little bit of a negative with him is, he wants to make plays so bad that he's ultra aggressive. And, you're going to get beat like that sometimes. You're also going to make plays sometimes. So it all depends on, really how many of each are you giving me? What kind of moments are they happening in? And again, are you willing to accept some of the, things that we're going to give up for the plays that he is going to make? But here again, I thought this was pretty cool, right? So, this is kind of how you draw it up is hey, if we get this guy to bite, I want you to delay and go, and I'm going to rip it to you. So again, that's what it's supposed to be. That's, so Kyle flashing up like this gives Beck exactly what, he wants and thinks, oh, this is wide open. But then again, you get the other guy playing with instincts, and all of a sudden it turns into a interception. So, yeah, just one of those, plays that despite, maybe Kyle Lewis being wrong or, again, because I don't know if this is deliberate or not. I have no idea. There's not really a reaction. But again, they're down late. I just think it was really interesting. And this is just one of those things that, from my time, playing, as a safety and the conversations and the, hey, we're trying to be aggressive here because we're down. We need the ball back. Let's be creative and try to figure out ways to get it back. And, we did do some of these things. So, yeah, again, not positive, but just, again, I mean, he no doubt impacted that play. So, again, I mean, the crosser there is probably where Beck should have went, but is what it is. So here we go. He is now over here playing. I believe he kind of came down inside there based on maybe motion. But he is blitzing here, and just wanted to kind of show, listen, this is kind of what you get sometimes with him. When he's a good blitzer, he times things very well. And he does have his sneaky and little ways, of ducking under blocks and, not letting offensive linemen get attached to him. But sometimes, you do get this, and it's Well, that definitely looks more like a safety blitzing and not getting home than it does a linebacker, where like when all else fails, a linebacker's probably throwing some weight in there, right? And like just at least saying, "Hey, we're gonna have a collision here, and maybe I can knock you back into the quarterback or run you over or whatnot." And obviously, like I said, with Kyle Lewis, I don't really think you get that. So again, like that's if you were going to count and say, hey, let's go through each thing and say, okay, does this fit in the safety bucket or does this fit into the linebacker bucket? Well, I think when he's blitzing from depth and ends up, getting picked up, what does a one-on-one situation look like with, the player that he's, that is picking him up? I think it definitely falls into like what a safety would give you in a similar situation. So, just saying, listen, you've seen it before, right? I think we saw it last year with Jordan Brooks, where came free through an A gap, and I think maybe it was like Jalen Warren or somebody that thought they were going to pick him up, and he just absolutely leveled and kind of ran over and collapsed the pocket, causes a little panic in the quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I don't really think that is in Kyle Lewis's game. But right there is what you see, on the other side of it, right? Where he, again, times it very well, kind of sneaky and slithery, sticks his foot in the ground, sees the hole. Like, he's almost like a running back where, like, he's like, all right, that's where I'm sticking the foot. Now I'm cutting up. And then, again, see the duck there? Like, where he gets low and gets underneath the block, and then he'll come up, and again, continue and find the ball carrier for a tackle. It is cool, man. Again, this is... yeah, that's who he is right there. He's not a power player. He's definitely more finesse, instincts, playmaker, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But again, like you have to kind of keep that in mind because you can't ask him to do things that require, strength and power and whatnot. So here he is again. Next blitz. You're going to get motion, so he's going to kind of creep inside here. Now he's got the green light, and he's going to go. Again, times it, and same thing kind of there, right? Again, great job. He affected the play. He got home. But if you watch, right, it, and he breaks kind of down, breaks down and ends up kind of spinning out of it. But he was not going to throw his shoulder in there and cause a big collision. It was kind of just like, I'll duck my shoulder, and I'm going to make a play here and be an athlete. And again, listen, if you're going to get home at the quarterback, I don't really care how you do it, quite honestly, just as long as obviously you're not leaving anybody else out to dry, and we get it done. But again, just we have to highlight and say, what can he do? What are the expectations? So if you think that if he's going to come down and hit a guy and open something up for somebody else, you have to be you have to pick and choose where you think he can do that, right? Because again, like when you see it, he's just not really a power player. Strength is not really a huge part of his game. Nonetheless, like I said, it was a damn good play. Watch it again. Yep, it's good stuff. Cause an incompletion. Okay, here we go here. Now he's on the other side. And this is the cool thing again, right? He can move all over the place. Does everything equally as well, regardless of what side where he's playing. Like for here, he's playing the field side, right? You have the ball on this hash here, so this is the field side, all of this, and then from this hash to the sideline down here would be the boundary side. So with that said, they are kind of, and they did this a lot with him, so that they kind of trust him with his speed and instincts and all that to, cover ground here. So now again, starts creeping up at the line, kind of figuring out where he's going to go here, sees that it's play action, can take his outside course, but issue there is he leaves his feet. And sometimes I get it. You don't think you're going to get home, and quarterback looks like he's going to rip it. You want to get your hands up and maybe knock the ball down. But if he just stays on his feet, he might be able to grab a hold of him. Maybe he gets, he gets a good enough hold that he doesn't have to let go. Maybe he can swipe the ball. Maybe he can actually, spin back, dropping his left shoulder and spin back inside. But instead, leaves his feet, allows the quarterback to step up and throw. And yes, obviously, it did not hurt him. But I think, we could do a little bit better in that territory. Still, we love the pressure. Here he is in coverage, and not much going on here, right? But I just wanted to show, what it looks like when he's turning and flipping the hips in the middle of the field here, right? So you get him, looks like this tight end's going to run something vertical. So I'm not sure if he's reading, where the steps are, if he bid on play action. But now he's going to turn and run a little bit, and then obviously it looks like he's got some help here from safety. And then he's going to kind of read that the ball is going to go behind him. So it's a stop, quick flip, gets back around. So again, if that ball was put on target, he would have been, there to, make a tackle, or possibly, maybe if the ball ended up getting popped up, I think he would have been in the vicinity and close enough there to maybe end up with a deflection, tip drill kind of pick. But again, if you watch it at full speed, boom, flip, he's he's got very fluid hips, man. He's gonna be able to, and that was a little bit elongated, but again, I just kind of want to show you, the different movements that he is capable of. Again, I think that's gonna end up being where he's at his best. And at worst case scenario, if he doesn't work out as anything else, I still do think that he could play in the middle of the field as a, dime or nickel, linebacker that can just drop into hook zones or run back and play that Tampa 2 in the deep, deep middle. He can definitely do those things. There's no doubt about it. He has way too good of coverage skills to not succeed in that area if all else fails. And here he is, middle of the field, carries the vertical, it breaks off. And again, look, his eyes are so good. I love his eyes, because he's already kind of looking for, all right, I did my job. Now I know that I'm handing this guy off to somebody else and somebody else's responsibility. Now I'm going to go get my next responsibility. He does an absolutely top-notch, fantastic job of that. Right? Again, he was already kind of bearing down and realizing that this crosser was coming. And he did a good enough job of carrying his guy where, that's what you want, is you don't want him, dropping off too soon and leaving the giant window. You want him carrying to the very last second of what would technically be his area. And then that's when you leave them, because that's how the smallest windows are created. Is if both of us, if he and this linebacker are working, together, and they both are at the, perimeter of their, right? It's kind of silly to say it this way, but if you picture the Madden circles, right? If both of them are at the edges of their area, that obviously creates the smallest gap and window between the two of them, where if he drops him too early, that's a bigger window, right? So again, knowing when to drop guys and carrying them the right amount of distance and time is very important. And again, I think it's something that he does very well. And then obviously here you see him turn into a blocker, do a good job there for his teammate. And we're rewarded with a touchdown. Here he is playing against a big set from the offense, playing more of a traditional linebacker look. And again, you get that, look at the movement skills, though. I will say this, two things. One, he's so aggressive that, he comes up, he bites on a lot of things, almost everything, where there's a lot of false steps in his game. He's definitely somebody that could be manipulated by play action, a lot, especially with how good, the play fakes and the quarterbacks are at the next level. That's something where maybe he would have to improve by, reading his keys or just, tape and tendencies, that kind of stuff. But I wanted to show just kind of the movement skills here a little bit. Is okay, we're forward. Now I'm breaking out. Now I'm settling down. Now I'm finding the crosser. Like, he's just kind of ready to go everywhere. He's yeah, it's pretty. Again, it's a lot of fun to watch him in coverage. You know, and that looks like some of the combine drills that they have these guys doing, right? Where it's like left, right, back, back, forward. You know, that kind of thing. So, just showing again some of the movement skills that he's got. And here he is playing in coverage. This is a zone that they ask him to cover a lot, is underneath the corner. Here he's kind of playing a guy on a scramble drill and ends up being incomplete. I would like to see him with like better technique in that situation, right? Where like he's here and he's getting in front of him. I don't necessarily love that, just because like listen, he does have an arm on him here so he can feel where he's at, but it's so much easier for a receiver to get open when you're behind, the player. Because again, if all it takes is him to shake kind of free and then he's got no idea where he is. Where if you're behind, you can see both players at the same time and you can still, play the ball, play the player, kind of do all of it. So I would like to see a little bit better positioning. Again, it didn't hurt us there, but I think there's room for improvement in how we play those kinds of plays. Again, linebacker roll. Watch him here. We're going to drop. Eyes are forward. He's reading everything. Sees another player. Leak out. Sticks foot in ground. Knows he should have some help here based on the coverage and his, and his drop and where his depth is at. Sticks foot in ground. Takes a really good angle. Drives on it. And again, that's where maybe some of the strength, limitations come from. That you see it right there. Is like he's not exactly a big hitter. He's more of just a wrap up kind of tackler. I really can't say that I saw like one really good pop or anything like that. On his tape. A lot of it was like just I'm gonna try to grab you and drag you down, or hit you low, those kinds of things. Not really a big hitter, I would say. Here, another one, how I mentioned he can kind of, bite on play fakes and be, manipulated. Well, you're going to get like an RPO action here, right? So he starts down inside to play the run, starting to realize like, oh, this guy's leaking outside here. Then changes his mind and as he sees the quarterback tuck it and kind of become a runner. Ended up inside after he ended up, he must have saw and thought that the running back did actually have the ball, because he ended up going inside even further. And then now he's turning and, the guy is catching a ball here in the flat for a touchdown. So again, when you watch the whole thing, right? Again, like you're trying to do too much. It almost seems like, I mean, if we like we broke it down, but like if we do this one more time, like you can see like he's attacking the backfield, he's going to the flat. Now he changes his mind. It's like quarterback, but now I'm gonna go after running back. Nope, it's not him. Going back to quarterback, and oh, it is that guy leaking out into the flat, right? So again, there's a lot of that kind of stuff where he's again, he's kind of, false steps, going the wrong way, being tricked and manipulated by, RPO stuff, play action stuff, anything with, some sort of fake in it. But like I said, that's what you're going to get with him. You have to be willing to accept some of that for the plays that he's going to make. And if you don't, and you don't want to deal with the negatives, then, I'm not quite sure, you can really trust him in big roles, and he really will have to be kind of, knocked down to playing like those dime linebacker roles, as I said, where it's just like, hey, this is all you're going to do. We're not going to ask you to do, this, that, and the other thing, or, too much, because we don't want you being manipulated by, quarterbacks and this and that. We kind of just want you to do your job, and that's that. Here we are again. Traditional linebacker roll, like the step inside, right? Like, I'm sure he's, filling one of these gaps. But he steps inside. Now he's starting to work back outside, and he hesitates and tries to like take the tight end on here. And this is where he's going to end up kind of, missing a tackle and just short. That's where, the lack of, size and length and, height and all that can kind of come into play too, right? Just when you're small, it's, it will show up when you're a couple inches short, from making a tackle. And again, that's something, that we see a couple times on tape. Here he is off the edge. Real quick, I just want you to see it again because there's a little bit of like a laziness for a split second, and then it turns into outstanding hustle, right? So it's kind of like, okay, and then, we got to go. Runs him down, tries to knock the ball out from behind, doesn't get it, but I still like the effort and the attempt. This is a tough position to be in, but I thought he actually did a good job here. He's got a guy coming out to block him, fights him off and gets to the outside. That way, his help, the three guys here trailing, can kind of help him and potentially keep him out of the end zone. And they did actually on that play. So again, that's kind of why I thought like, hey, that's a good job. Now I'd love to see him just, we watched, Chris Johnson just absolutely get rid of blockers and like eliminate them immediately, grab them and throw them like you're not going to block me. I would have liked to see more of that in Kyle Lewis's game. So, so we see less of this where it's like, again, still, I thought, he played it well, but hey, if you can just toss that guy, or if you can come up and knock him backwards into the running back's path, I mean, you might be dealing with, you might be saving 5, 6, 7 yards on the run, and, definitely be saving a touchdown. So just, just some things that you're thinking and you see as you go through this. Great job here. One of those tackles for losses. Looks like he's blitzing, kind of reading and recognizing that something's off here. It doesn't look right. Again, I think that's where the instincts come in. Right, here he is, and then kind of slows it down, tries to figure out what's going on, sees it, and eliminates it. It's a great play. Catch it from this angle. Even that, like, again, I mean, listen, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we made the play. It's a great play, but even you see the tackling there, right, where it's just, it's definitely like more corner / safety-ish than it is linebacker. Here he is off the edge. This is tough because I like the fact that he's getting pressure, but I mean, he was left unblocked, so it's nothing, it's not like he did anything special in this situation here. I'd like to see him do a better job of keeping the quarterback in the pocket, not taking, a bad angle and allowing him outside. And then in reality is like, you look at this ball is going to end up here. I mean, you have safety and a guy trailing. This ball should not be caught. I mean, it's absolutely dreadful, terrible coverage. So it ends up for, being a touchdown for Florida State. But again, if you had done your job, and I do think he could have done a better job, I do think that, he could have eliminated that by keeping Castellanos in the pocket. There's just a little bit too much of an angle this way, where if he had kind of come around out this way a little bit, yes, you're sacrificing, an extra split second to keep him in the pocket. But again, when you look at the result, right? Like stay outside. You want to attack this shoulder, the right one here, not the front one. Castellanos is a good athlete. I think now he's actually trying out to be a receiver. So yeah, again, you're dealing with a good athlete. You want to keep those guys contained the best you can. Here he is on the edge, getting locked up with what looks like to be like a tackle. Kind of gets rid of him. Catches the running back coming back across. You'll see it better from this angle. He's got the long arm in there, even though it's really not extended and locked out. But looks like he used the tackle's momentum against him. Goes away, comes back underneath. And then again, same thing. Trying to tackle too high. And does get some help. They get him down. No big deal. But again, like you see it. He's not the most orthodox or firm tackler. Doesn't tackle like a linebacker. Here, I just want to show him because he will get this. Being the overhang player, he will have to do a good job of beating these blocks and being there to tackle, because that's the NFL has turned into a lot more of that, right? They want to get their playmakers the ball in space. It's an easy way to rack up a catch and get guys involved. And they're drafting more and more tight ends, more athletes and guys that can block on the outside. So, it's something that he's going to have to do at the next level. Does a good job there. Here he is rushing, and this is him one-on-one with a tight end. So, again, you can, you're going to get some of this too, where tight end locks him up one-on-one, just to show, listen, you're not talking about a pure outside linebacker, pass rusher, right? It's, again, why I definitely think there's more safety in his game than anything else, personally. It's just some of these, he's rushing like an athlete, not like a linebacker or like a legit, pass rusher. Here he is in the box, right? Same kind of thing, right? Kind of comes up, working through traffic. Has some help there, but still, found the ball, did a good job. Here he is on the outside. Now he's dropping into coverage. And this again is one of those okay, play's over. Oh no, it's not. Now let me go make a play. And this time he actually gets rewarded for it. Right, so again, we'll see the whole thing here. Drops back down the seam. All right, my guy's got it. Oh nope, you want to keep going? Gets a good hand on the ball, rips it out. Then you can see some of the athletic ability. It doesn't go far, but I would love to see him in the open field with like a pick six or something like that, where he's got to make some guys miss, and he gets he gets some blockers out in front. I think that'd be fun. All right, here we are, next play. Again, he's outside here, playing in that kind of overhang. Reads this real quick, jumps it, knocks the ball out, incomplete pass. His instincts, his coverage ability, it really is. It's awesome, man. I don't think anybody, I don't think that surprises anybody based on, what we all saw and what people fell in love with at the Senior Bowl. But, you see it here with a lot of this stuff, right? He knows he's got safety help behind him, and he knows he's playing, underneath coverage. Be aggressive. Don't second-guess yourself. That guy that's running the seam is not, he's not really your responsibility after a certain distance. And he does a good job with his eyes as well and seeing the quarterback. If you watch, quarterback is hitting his back foot, and that's when he starts to recognize balls coming out. That's something that defenders look for as well. It's not just the routes. It's not just the combination of routes either. it's the quarterback. It's his feet, right? I mean, how many times do you hear about the feet will tell us where to go and our progressions and all that kind of stuff? Well, if you see the ball, if you see the quarterback hit his back foot, that's usually a pretty damn good time to start breaking on something. And if you can see where he's going and then put the route, together, and this one obviously happens to be right in front of him, so it's a little bit easier. But again, that's what he's seeing, that's what he's reading, and that's what allows him to, jump and jump balls like that, and and make plays. Very easily could have been another pick and another pick six. Again, too, this is the other part, man. Like, I complained about this stuff a lot with the guys that the Dolphins had in coverage the last couple of years, not having their eyes in the right spot and reading, the routes and finding the routes. Everybody wants to stare at the quarterback and has no idea what's running behind them, past them, sometimes even in front of them. It was bad at times. Here, he's got his eyes on the whole thing. He's looking at all of these guys and reading it and saying, all right, well, who's breaking inside? Who's breaking outside? And he ends up tracking this guy here. And despite, that, he's made a lot of plays by undercutting, those routes and, grabbing picks that way. But this is affecting the quarterback. This quarterback is seeing this and knows he's got to kind of layer this ball over the top of him and drop it in front of the safety. That's a difficult throw. So, regardless that, Lewis didn't exactly do anything, knock the ball out, even have contact, just his positioning and the fact that, that he can trail well enough in those situations, it is going to change the trajectory of, and the arc of that the quarterback's got to put that ball. Same thing here. Just more understanding of where things are going, who's coming and going. Sees the quarterback carrying, settles, sees the crosser, comes down. Doesn't allow a lot of yak. Very good at those. Very good. Very good at taking away the first one or two, and then, again, finding who else is coming into your zone late, where, I've seen it plenty of times where guys just, forget that last guy's coming through, where, hey, I carried the vertical, and then, I was in the way of the dig, and, we took care of that, but then the late drag, we forget that, they're somebody else is still coming across the formation. Just happens a lot. He's very good at seeing all routes. And he's going to have no problem in coverage. I really have absolutely no worries about that if he's put in certain situations. It's going to be, man coverage and, in the slot against certain types of athletes is where I'm going to be a little bit, I don't want to say worried, but I got to see it before I have any, I can make any real, guesses as to what I think he can and can't do. Just, it's not on tape enough. Here it is again with a similar play to before, right? Boom, arm starts, and again, he's not far away, but does a good job. Still knocking the ball away. Thinks he could have had one there. This is a really good job. So you look, right, a lot of the other times, he was, coming down 2, 3, 4 steps. He was biting hard on these play actions. He stays home here, reads it, sees all, the action going on, doesn't fall for any of it. Now sprints out, takes a good angle where he can take away, a throw, like a now throw. And then now he's got the athletic ability to turn, clamp down and eliminate the space. It's picture perfect. That's phenomenal work, man. Really, really good. So again, that's what it can look like. And that's a tight end, right? I don't know if that's Roush or not. But, you know, this is, I think he's capable of covering tight ends. You know, at least I think he can run with them, you know, and run and cover guys that can run legitimate routes. I don't know about 50-50 balls and that kind of stuff. Again, just certain things like that I didn't really get a chance to see on his tape. So that's what I mean. Like, there's definitely going to be like a checklist of things that's, you know, Hafley has to evaluate and say, hey man, I didn't see you do this on tape. Let's see if you can do it. Again, right there, like I said earlier, right? He covers those underneath routes a ton, gets his hands on a lot of footballs. That one's just barely out of his reach, but you know, if he's got to hit a certain depth, man, he does a damn good job of getting there, taking a good angle. And again, like, so many quarterbacks throw these balls with him just there. Like, I mean, he's going there from the beginning. Like, there's no hiding, there's no hesitation. It's snap, going, and yet that ball still gets thrown. Like, he has to be hiding himself well, you know, or it's just not expected. But he, yeah, that's like his bread and butter, man. Here he is one-on-one with a guard. I thought that was actually like a nice little move there. Just wanted to show that. Again, finesse, quick outside-inside move. Just, again, using quickness, athleticism on a guard in space. Here he is off the edge. He's going to drop. Again, slips, but still sees what's going on. Comes up, makes a tackle, eliminates any yak opportunities, takes down a bigger guy, right? And again, not a big hitter, not a wrap up, just finds a way to get him down, hitting him low. Here's one of the very few reps that I thought looked anything like a vertical route that he had to run with and carry in man coverage. And again, I think, you know, depending on where that ball is put and the player, you know, that could end up being something there. But, you know, again, I don't think one play tells you the whole story by any means, but just wanted to throw that in there and say, hey, this is one of the few looks that we get, you know, at him having to play a little bit of man coverage and maybe, you know, cover a guy that's smaller and quicker, faster than he is. Here, kind of the same idea, right? Lined up outside. He's going to run outside and play that outside spot, but you get the corner sitting here as well. Ball came out quick. And again, to me, I would think that he's affecting this play. You know, it's either that or the corner just saw it, knew it was coming, sat on the whole thing, didn't even worry about anything over the top. But this is what I was mentioning on the earlier play where it's like, you know, even though he's not getting his hand on the ball and it's really just more so like positioning, like he can, you know, he can definitely affect things by being in the right spot or, you know, flashing to certain areas and making things look like they're not open. Does a good job here. Here he is on the outside. Creeps up to the end of the line. Takes on two guys there. I thought this was a really good job. Again, I honestly thought this was probably more of a poor job by the offensive guys than anything, because I think they should have been able to handle him. But still, I mean, just because they didn't do a great job doesn't mean you can't give, you know, him his credit. But you get the tight end, and then you get kind of the receiver coming down and doubling, trying to make sure that they can get the outside edge. But he keeps working, stays on the move, tracks it. That's a great tackle. That's a wrap up around the waist, finishes him. Here he is again, blitzing from depth. Thought this was a good play. This was a good job. This ended up being like a good call against this defense, right? Like you get these here, and all of a sudden, boom! I got a big lane here. But Lewis does a good job. He spins out, and then he's actually going to get his hand on and make like a shoelace tackle. That's a really good job. Great effort. Great play. It's good stuff. Here he is lined up inside, one-on-one again with a guard. And here he's going to kind of run a game with the end, I believe it is. Let me see. Yeah. So he's going to come down here and kind of crash on the tackle, try to pull this guard over with him and create this loop for the end here, and it ends up getting him open. He gets inside and ends up with a sack. So it's funny, man, when you don't think he can do things and whatnot, then you see something, happen, and you're like, it's what makes it so difficult to evaluate, who he is and what he can do and how you should use him. And again, the NFL is a different animal. So, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see, what they decide to try with him, and how much they put on his plate in the beginning. But he's a fun player, man. He's, he finds ways, to get the football. He finds ways to make plays. He finds ways to affect, things and quarterbacks, even if he's not directly part of what happens. But he's he's just such a good football player in general that I think, again, like, he's gonna find a role. There's just no doubt about it. This, again, I just thought was good hustle coming from across the other side of the field. Here he is down in the box. Nobody really touches him, but still it's that closing speed. And here he is affecting throws and causing turnovers. Right? Again, I don't know why, the line's not picking him up, or if it's the sim pressure look there, which again is what Hafley plans on running, I believe. It's what he has run. Creates confusion across the offensive line. Kyle Lewis is free. He does a good job of tracking the quarterback and adjusting, to where the quarterback's trying to escape to. Right inside. Nope, coming to get you. And again, turns into a turnover. Here he is on the outside, kind of playing that overhang again. Read screen. And I'd like to I showed this again. This may seem so insignificant, and maybe it is. But again, he doesn't play with a lot of power. A lot of the time he's like taking these blocks on, and he either has to kind of win in finesse ways or ducks underneath, and it's like kind of like a, I'm trying not to be touched style. But here he just runs right through the guy. Even knocks him back a little bit. Like, I want to see more of that. Like, you are a tough son of a gun, Like, use it, man. Don't accept being blocked. Go get it. Here he is again, overhang, creeping up, times it very well. Just misses the tackle. And that's Jadarian Price right there, who, was my second favorite running back in the draft. But again, that's also kind of where the size comes up, right? Misses. I think we could have did a better job there, obviously. But just to show, again, like he does miss some tackles here and there. I don't really have an issue with his tackling per se. It's just, sometimes, and again, I think this is going to happen when you're playing so fast, so aggressively. Sometimes guys are just going to put a move on you, and they're going to make you miss because the window, to make these tackles is so small sometimes that it's actually a hell of a lot easier for, a running back to make that guy miss because you haven't even begun yet. You can kind of go any way you want to make this guy miss, and he's coming full speed. Not so much this one here, but again, now we're talking about Jeremiah Love, right? Inside. That's where, again, maybe where some of the size and the length show up. Just can't grasp them. But overall, yeah, I don't really have an issue. I think, again, I think he tackles like a safety. So again, some of those I don't want to say I expect, but I can live with him. He is still also altering, the run, and hopefully, it's at the benefit of some of his teammates that'll help come up and, make tackles. And again, the college game is so different than the NFL, especially when it comes to, how wide the field is. So some of these things that are busting outside, they're just not going to have the room to really do that in the next level. So if you're going to, take away, an inside run, and the running back's got to, try to bend it back outside, that might be just good enough, for somebody else to come up and help and do their job, and still get, a minute and hold the, the run to a minimum game. Here, Malachi Toney kind of out in space here. Again, he gives up some yak. Not a ton. Didn't really give up a ton. It looked like, throughout the year. But, quick athlete. That's an NFL caliber receiver, and will be at some point, no doubt about it. So again, that's kind of what that looks like in space. Like, gotta break down a little bit better. Like, if that's going to be, again, if that's going to be Zay Flowers, or that's going to be, whoever that's going to be, Garrett Wilson in the slot, just getting the ball in his hands. Like, we gotta be prepared to break down, tackle, and not give them yak. We don't want them to get going, right? We want those guys frustrated. We want those guys catching the ball, and that's it. Done where they catch it. If we're gonna allow receptions. Here, gaining depth, reading what's going on underneath, and again, like, he's kind of, he was covering this at the beginning. He sees this here, and despite all that, he still sees this underneath. It's a great job, man. It's really good eyes. He knows what's coming. Very, very aware of what's going on, like, kind of around the whole field, what's coming and going, the route combinations. If these guys are going vertical, it probably means somebody's underneath. So, I mean, just definitely one of the best parts of his game, maybe the best. Here, this is another one against Malachi Toney. Again, I'd like to see him get a little bit better hands-on right there. Maybe knock Toney off of his route. He's got no threat underneath him. So, like, you can turn and carry this, better and closer than you did, because there's nothing out here. You don't have to be in the flat. You can just turn and basically run with this if you wanted to. And then Toney makes an absolutely ridiculous hell of a catch. But again, you can eliminate that by being a little bit better. And again, with his instincts and how he reads everything, I'm actually surprised that he didn't. Yeah, this was one of the more rough games for him. Was this Miami game? Again, here he is kind of biting inside on this RPO stuff, right? You see him kind of uncertain as to where the ball is. Start to kind of work down like it's a run. Unsure. There was a quick movement, real quick, as if he was going to go outside, but he's still buying that it's going inside. Now he's really committed to the ball being in here, the running back, and instead it's an easy little slip by the tight end, and he's got to run him down and try to tackle him 20 yards down the field. So again, just got to read our keys better, got to be more disciplined. Whatever his issue is in those situations, or if it's just him, being ultra aggressive and kind of saying, screw my responsibilities, that's always possible too, but that's gonna have to be coached out of him, because, at the next level, you don't have to do that. You can't do that, because most of the time you're leaving somebody else out to dry. Here he is in coverage, and again, eyes too fixated on what's going on in the backfield, if you ask me, because he doesn't really see this receiver take off inside. Runs into him, and really easy touchdown. So again, just have to be a little bit better in those situations. And then this was, him covering a tight end one-on-one. Ball was high, didn't really get a chance to see what it would have looked like, but positioning-wise, he was all right. He was there. See it again from this angle. Prepared for it. Eyes are still on the quarterback in the backfield. So that's everything there as far as Kyle Lewis tape. That was everything I gathered from his 2025 season. Yeah, good football player, man. Lot to talk about as far as what we saw on tape. All right, well, that's the Kyle Lewis tape. So as you guys can see, I think that he's kind of who I thought he was, at least, right? I still have questions because I just don't think the tape showed me enough. I don't think he played enough man coverage. Are you going to ask him to play man coverage, right? And again, I mean, some of these things, I would just flat out obviously put situations into practice, not just for him, but I would put him in position, say, hey, we're going to play man today. We're going to work on man coverage, right? So I want you to play in the box as that apex. We're going to play it against, 12 personnel or whatever. And that way he's got to cover, some tight ends one-on-one, and then we'll run it against 11 personnel, and you got to cover some receivers, and I want to see it all day long, basically, and that obviously doesn't even mean all day long in the NFL. You know what I mean? These guys practice for an hour and a half and it's over. But I think those are the situations and the things that you need to find out still, because the tape just doesn't tell you enough. Obviously you really didn't see him, play any split field or actual safety reps. If that's something that they have in mind and think that he's going to do or he's capable of, then yeah, we gotta see that too, right? So there's a lot that Hafley is going to have to simulate in practice, and he's just going to have to kind of put him all over the place and see, if he sinks or swims in these different situations. But, again, if all else fails, right, and he can't really play man coverage against receivers, if he's not really great at playing over the top and chasing a vertical from the boundary or something, you don't trust him to play deep safety, then okay, I still think that, based on what you do see on tape, is you're going to be able to be creative and blitz him. You're going to be able to roll coverages with him, and he's going to be able to, get to spots and eat up ground and play the ball. And, he does a good job of getting in the right position. I think you can trust him, again, in the middle of the field when he's got to cover 1, 2, sometimes 3 different guys, including that late drag, that always comes late and seems like it's open if everything else is covered up. He seems to do that very well, where, again, I see that all too often in the NFL, where it's just, again, that last guy gets forgotten about, and it ends up turning into a catch and run of 15, 20 yards because we were so worried about carrying the verticals and we didn't get our eyes back around and thought the play was over. Can't play that way, and he doesn't. So I think that that's a strength for him. I think in the box, he'd probably get pushed around a little bit because, again, he doesn't play with great strength. But I also do think that there'll be times where he can kind of, and probably mostly as a blitzer, but I think there'll be times where, he can still use those duck moves and, get around guys using his athleticism and, just overall he's a football player, right? He figures out ways to get it done sometimes. It's really going to come down to picking and choosing, again, what you trust him with. And, again, what Hafley's going to see during training camp and preseason and all that stuff. And, that's going to tell him how much this kid's ready for. So, it's going to be interesting to watch. My eyes will be glued on it when it comes to, preseason and what, we as fans have access to. But overall, again, I think when you look at like what he's good at, I still think that there will be some sort of role carved out for him in the NFL that he will without a doubt succeed at, because he is a good football player with damn good coverage skills, depending on what you ask, again, of course, right? But if you ask him to do what he was just doing, there's no doubt about it that he can be a damn good coverage guy, in the middle of the field and run into the sidelines and play in those flats and stuff like that and hiding it and then blitzing. Like, you just have to be careful that you don't leave him susceptible to, mismatches and, when quarterbacks and offenses want to change the play and the formation, and obviously you don't want him playing very many snaps like on the edge as like an edge setter. And, I'm not sure how many you want, snaps you want him playing as like an actual, like, just 4-3 outside linebacker and, asking him to come up and fill holes and, take on like guards and tackles and, whatever else. So, I mean, again, it's a he's a well-rounded player though, even for the things that like you have question marks. It's like, he still kind of can do them. It's just, do you want to ask him to do them? Because can he do them consistently? Or do you even want to ask a player of his stature to do those things? Because, he's going to end up being beaten up. He's a smaller guy. He's tough, but he's smaller. So yeah, I hope that the tape showed you, some of those things we could highlight. Some of those strengths and weaknesses, and then you can kind of start playing around, with ideas in your own head as to, what he can be. And, but again, I really think it all really comes down to what is Jeff Hafley going to see in training camp and preseason, from Kyle Lewis when he puts him in those situations that we haven't seen enough of yet to really get a good grasp of what he's capable of. So, until then, that's kind of how I feel about him. I think the floor is solid. I don't really know, I think there's potential for him to be like a superstar because the instincts and all that. I think, he could definitely be a guy that makes multiple plays, on the ball where, he finishes every year with 4 picks, 6 picks. Like, it's very possible. It's very possible. You got to get a team that gets good pressure and doesn't have all the time in the world to stand back there and kind of pick apart a defense. But, if quarterback's got to get the ball out, like he'll be where he's supposed to be. And if he is, he'll come away with the football. So, I think his success will be, predicated on, what the rest of the defense looks like as well. Maybe more so than some other guys. But yeah, still a fun player. And again, I think he's probably, for me, he would definitely add some special teams value. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But yeah, fun and exciting, to take a look at, and really looking forward to training camp and, the joint practices and all that stuff to see how he truly matches up, against other NFL talent. So yeah, man, that's it. You guys know the drill. Hit me up on Twitter at Tino9322, I think it is. And yeah, let me know what you guys think, and comment on the video however you want to do it. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it kind of brings some of your questions to light. And yeah, again, as always, thanks for checking it out. Stay focused on fins. Thanks, guys.